everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rihanna, and here on Reread It, I review, discuss, and summarize books that I have read to let you guys know if it's worth a reread or not. So today's video is on this book here. This is Conversations with Nostradamus, Part 1 by Dolores Cannon. So this book is Part 1 of, I believe, a 3-part series. So far, I've only read this one here, but I do have the other 2 in my collection as well. So Dolores Cannon is a pretty popular author for topics such as past life regression, hypnosis, life after death, and even aliens. If those are topics that you're interested in, she has a lot of books that you can choose from. So this book is actually 317 pages, and I found that it took me a while to get through this book, and I think it's because of the way that it is written. I would get really lost or confused in a lot of sections in this book and actually have to go back and reread things a few times. So I would recommend only reading this book by itself, meaning not reading any other books during the time that you're going to be reading this book. With that being said, let's get into the summary. Dolores Cannon is a woman who is well known for her work with past life regression, hypnosis, and paranormal things. She begins the book explaining who Nostradamus is. Nostradamus is actually a man that lived in France in the 1500s and was known for his prophecies. He was a very smart and mystical man in his time and was not only a prophet, but was also a well-known doctor as well. He had written nearly 1,000 prophecies. However, he wrote them in a style that people could not decipher or really struggled to decipher them. These are referred to as his quatrains, which are 4-lined poems. Each of his quatrains is supposed to pertain to a certain event or time period in the world. In his quatrains, he loved to use symbolism, anagrams, and he would also use Old French or Latin in them as well. So you might be wondering, how did Dolores get in contact with Nostradamus? Well, she went to an event that was for people interested in psychic phenomenon, and that is where she met a woman named Elena. Elena wasn't too familiar with psychic phenomenon at the time. However, she did have a near-death experience which always left her questioning more and seeking answers. With the type of work that Dolores does, not all people are good candidates for it. However, Elena turned out to be a great candidate, and it was actually through her that they were able to get in contact with Nostradamus. So Dolores put Elena under hypnosis and tried to regress her back to a past life. This is when she came in contact with Nostradamus. In this life, they discovered that Elena was actually one of Nostradamus' students named Dionysus. So this can get pretty intricate and sound a little bit crazy if this is a topic that you're not too familiar with. I also don't want to go too in-depth on every small detail because this video would be so long and this is a very intricate topic. But they begin exploring about Dionysus' life and his relationship with Nostradamus. Their work lasted for a long time, and they would meet up with Nostradamus to continue working on his quatrains regularly. That is, until Elena had to move away. So now Dolores' work came to a halt. Before Elena departed, Nostradamus had told them that they needed to find someone else that can complete the work that they have started. This is when Dolores ends up meeting another woman named Brenda. So Dolores decided to try the hypnosis on Brenda and didn't let her know what their goal was or what they were working on. To Dolores' amazement, Brenda was actually able to get in contact with Nostradamus. So the remainder of the book is based on the work that they do through Brenda. And that would be from chapter 7, page 77, all the way through to the end of the book, which is 317 pages. Throughout the book, Dolores includes transcripts of their conversations between Brenda and Nostradamus. Although they were working together to translate the quatrains, Nostradamus didn't just give them a clear answer on them, he would still make it to where they had to figure out the riddles. So he would provide some more context or maybe a few more details, but it was still up to Dolores and her team to decipher what they really meant. All of the chapters in this book have very eye-catching titles, and in each chapter, they discuss and break down the quatrains that pertain to that specific title. So, for example, chapter 15 is titled The Last 3 Popes. So each of the quatrains that they discuss in that chapter will all be pertaining to the events leading up to or during the last 3 popes. This is also the case for every other chapter throughout the book, so if you're really interested in a specific topic, it makes it very easy to just flip through and find what you're looking for. The book is written in dialogue form, so it switches back and forth between Dolores talking to Brenda and Brenda speaking to Nostradamus, and it gets a little bit confusing here with the he says and then she says and the back and forth between them all. Majority of the book is the conversation. However, there are a few parts where Dolores provides some background information or additional context or little side notes. I personally found the way this book is written to be a little bit confusing, and I think that might be why I was struggling to get through it. It took me a very long time to finish this book. I normally can read a book like this in about a month, but this one took me about a month and a half to finish, and I also had to make sure that I wasn't reading any additional books during the time that I read this book. So as I was saying, they go back and forth. So for example, it would be Dolores hypnotizing Brenda and asking Brenda a question to ask Nostradamus. And then Nostradamus would answer back to Brenda, and Brenda would then translate back to Dolores saying, well, he says, then she says. So Brenda was playing the middleman, and I think that's why this book gets a little bit confusing and jumbled up in my opinion. So this is sort of a general summary of the book. I'll go a little bit more in depth on how these conversations play out when I get to the pieces from the book. However, let me tell you my favorite parts about the book first. I think my favorite thing about this book is probably just the overall phenomenon that they experienced and how Dolores shared her experiences with us. It really is a complex topic and can be difficult to understand at times, but I do think Dolores does her best at trying to explain it. I would not recommend this book to somebody if this is the first time that you're hearing about these kinds of things or phenomenons, because it is a little intricate and they don't provide too much background information about it. When I read this book, I was a bit familiar with these topics, and I even found that this book was a bit too complex for me at times as well. I'm going to go ahead and read you guys a few pieces from the book. Of course, I have picked them out ahead of time, but as I was saying earlier, since there is a lot of conversation back and forth between them all throughout the book, a lot of the pieces that I picked had to be those conversations. So I'll try to put them on the screen so that it'll be a little bit easier for you to follow along as I'm reading, and that way you can tell who is speaking at that time. Okay, so let's go to the first one. She said she was one of 6 students who were studying with this teacher. They would occasionally all meet with him as a group, but he also gave them private lessons. She said in a voice filled with awe, "He's teaching me the study of life, how to heal the body, how to heal the mind, how to see the future. He knows more than any man on earth." Page 11. So this is Elena talking when she's under hypnosis in her past life as Dionysus. And in this part, she is referring to what she's learning from Nostradamus as his student. Okay, so this one is going to be a conversation one, so I'll go ahead and try to write it out on the screen for you guys, and hopefully it'll be a little bit easier for you to follow along. Brenda. So far as the catastrophe is concerned, it will be very localized and will have some strange side effects in the dimension of time in the general area there. He can't really describe it, and he can't really tell us how to prepare for it because it's very bizarre. But he said that it will eventually have far-reaching effects because the government was counting on that line of research to give it an edge in this war. And some of that edge is taken away, and it will end up affecting the outcome of that war. Dolores. Does he know what war this will be? Brenda. War 3, he says. The third war. Page 121. So this piece from the book shows a little bit of how they would go back and forth in the conversation, like I was saying earlier, with like the he says and then she says, and they're all talking amongst each other through Brenda. Okay, moving on to the next one. This is another conversation piece. Dolores. His mouth sealed would mean that he is secret. Brenda. Yes, he is secret. The phrase toward the south at the window means that due to his political beliefs, what open activities he indulges in, and the mayhem he likes to cause is more often to appear in the southern part of the country where such mayhem has been somewhat traditional. Dolores. Then no one is going to know who he is until he comes to light at the time of the Antichrist. Brenda. This is true. He says he is hoping these messages he is trying to convey will get across in time. Page 155. Okay, you guys, that is it for today's video. Overall, this was not one of my favorite books, unfortunately, and I probably would not reread this one again for that reason. I do feel that this was a very interesting topic and really entertaining. However, I did not like the way that it was written. The dialogue of the back and forth gets really confusing. You really have to pay close attention to what they're talking about and who's talking, and it gets really complex and intricate. And also, although they translated the quatrains in this book, or a lot of his quatrains in this book, I'll say, in my opinion, it wasn't what I expected, I guess. I think I was looking for more of a direct translation where they provide maybe a date or a time period or some type of reference to where you can kind of pinpoint or narrow down a bit more what they're talking about or when these things will occur. Also, I believe this encounter took place in the 70s, and for some of the quatrains, they would say things like in the near future or in the far future. However, they don't provide any sort of reference range on what that would mean. So there's no reference on if that would be 5 years from then, 10 years, 15, 20 years from then, or 100 years. There's no real time reference on this, so it sort of leaves you on a cliffhanger. For this reason, I would probably give this book about a 5 out of 10. However, like I was saying, I do have the other 2 parts of this book. I just have not picked them up yet because I didn't like this one very much, and I feel like the other 2 will probably be about the same as this one. But I may go ahead and give them a try in the future just to see if they are the same or if I like them any better than I liked this one. I think I might have just had higher or different expectations for this book because I know there are a lot of people that actually really love this series and really love these Nostradamus books. But personally, it just was not for me. If you're somebody that's really into trying to solve the quatrains, or you're someone really interested in Nostradamus and his work and his prophecies, then this book might be great for you. However, I'm not that person, so it wasn't my favorite. Although this was not my favorite book, I hope that you guys still enjoyed this video and this review. Please leave me a comment down below if you've read this book and what your opinions on it are. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and maybe it will change my outlook or point of view on this book. Maybe I just wasn't understanding the concept behind it. And as always, if you have any book recommendations, please leave those in the comment section for me as well. I'm always on the lookout for new books. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe before you go, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!